What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you an update on Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Lex Imperialis. The upcoming expansion for the game that was originally supposed to release at the end of last year, I believe, but was obviously delayed. But just yesterday, from the time of this video, they posted an update about it, talking about some of the features, which obviously is the bulk of what I'm sharing here. Though, it's worth a mention that this update combined with the upcoming Warhammer Skulls event, which is Warhammer's big event where they show off all the video games and stuff that they're working on in different places. It seems likely we'll get a release date for this around that time. That just seems like the obvious place to do that, given that we're finally getting information about it. And simply as a personal observation, Owlcat Games has, since their founding, released games very consistently. That is to say, every couple years, basically. And given that Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader released at the tail end of 2023, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect an announcement about whatever it is they're working on next, as we know that they have a lot of projects in the oven, so that's certainly something to know. But as of right now, we're here to talk about Lex Imperialis, so let's do that. The upcoming Lex Imperialis DLC is meant to focus on the Imperial Tithe, which is to say how the Imperium of Man collects taxes, more or less, from the planets and whatnot under its purview, and as a rogue trader who technically owns quite a few planets, that's going to come up for us. We already knew that this DLC would introduce a companion, but with this new update we've been given, we got some extra details, of course. So in this update, we essentially get confirmation of an upcoming new archetype, the Overseer. It looks like the Overseer themselves is going to come with a variety of different, essentially animal companions, but appropriately cybered out. We got information on those companions, or familiars as they are calling them, and then in the final screenshot of the update, I think they might have showed a picture of the upcoming companion on the right, and they actually specifically name him in this update as well as Solomorn Anthar. And all of that is accompanied by a new origin that will be incoming as well, the Arbites, or the Adeptus Arbites, who are effectively like the galactic police of the Imperium of Man. Though personally, I do dislike that sort of comparison there, simply because the Arbites have actually a bit of a grander scale. They tend to tackle crimes and everything from citizens that cause a more direct threat to the Imperium. That is to say, if something actually threatens a world's security, the wider Imperium, or like specifically against Imperial officials, or really anything that would affect the Imperial Tithe, those people's ability to pay their taxes, more or less. And on our end, as I mentioned, that will apparently be an origin that we'll get to pick on the top of actually getting a companion who is a member of that particular organization. But what's really exciting to me is actually this upcoming Overseer archetype and the familiars that are going to come along with it. Now, they don't give a ton of details about the actual abilities of any of these guys in terms of specifics for either the archetype or the actual familiars, outside of some generalities. But it looks like the familiars themselves are going to be the Cyber Mastiff, which will be the companion of our new companion, as it were. And it seems these guys are going to focus on martial support, getting up close and personal with enemies, probably unsurprisingly given the nature of them. The second one they introduced was the Cyber Raven. They mentioned that these ravens are associated with psychers, and in particular, what they do is amplify your psychic abilities, being able to increase their range, damage, and number of possible targets, and even potentially providing different effects. That one is especially interesting to me given how very, very strong the Pyromancer already is, which makes me feel like that one might wind up being a bit of overkill. Third up, there is the Servo Skull Swarm. Looks like these guys are associated with officers and operatives, but they're a little vague about what they actually do, just mentioning that they provide surveillance, relay their master's abilities across the battlefield, perhaps extending range in some way, or harassing the enemy, as it mentions at the end. And I'm not entirely sure what that means, maybe just debuffing them in some way, or just generally being annoying. But as somebody whose logo is literally a floating skull with headphones, I'm obviously not opposed. And then finally, the fourth one is the Cyber Eagle, also valued by Imperial officers and operatives, apparently. It mentions that these ones actually stay in the air above the fight, and I'm curious if that is like an actual thing we'll be moving around and commanding in any way, or if they're just like generally out of the fight until you command them to do something. But it mentions that you can command them to blind and maim enemies, simply having them go for the eyes, or simply acting as a distraction, leading to some sort of confusion which could cause friendly fire, which I'm especially interested in. But putting all of it together, that is the bulk of what this update is, really. So to sort of recap at the end here, we've got the upcoming Overseer archetype that will be added with Lex Imperialis, presumably as part of the DLC. Then that will be the archetype of our new companion, Solomorn Anthar, who is a member of the Adeptus Arbites, who is, of course, helping us with the Imperial Tithe, which is the subject of the DLC, and it looks like that origin will actually also become available. And then that obviously leads one to wonder whether or not there are any unique interactions with that companion if you are also of that same origin. But overall, shaping up to be a pretty exciting update. I am very keen on this, especially given how well they did with Void Shadows. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm always going to cover the stuff that Owlcat is doing just because I'm curious about the games they make, but Void Shadows in particular was quite the notch above what they typically have done previously for DLC. They really knocked that one out of the park. And I'm hoping then that Lex Imperialis can follow up on that with a really cool story about some lore that might not otherwise get a lot of screen time. But otherwise, in terms of mechanical stuff, the new archetype and the familiars are looking really cool, and hopefully it won't be too long before we get some news about when this is releasing and any other relevant details we might need. But for today, that's pretty much all there is to know. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. I will, of course, be covering this in the future. But that's going to do it for today. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.